Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This is Nosa Capital, coming to you from a rather strange afternoon, weather-wise, from the Southern Hemisphere. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to keep the new format going. As you can see, we're going to start with the crypto market overview. But before we start in earnest, I'm going to ask you to subscribe to the channel, like the video. It helps with the algorithm. I know, I sound like some kind of second-hand car salesman. I get it. But please, understand why you get those of us creators, content creators, pleading to you. It really does help. Okay, so let's get started. I've been switching over to looking at the crypto market overview until I kind of get something that you all like. So far, nobody has complained, but I don't want to be holding you up too long when it comes to that. So we can see the prices of Bitcoin, Ethereum, BNB, Solana, and of course XRP. Current fear and greed index at about 43, which is neutral, which means that there's not really anything to be afraid of at the moment. I mean, things are kind of calm. Altcoin season index is about 63. That means it's neutral. Remember what I told you some time ago? I did tell you that anything between 0 and 25, that means that's in the Bitcoin season. Between 26 and 74 is neutral, and 75 above is Bitcoin season. Altcoin season. Now we had a moment for the altcoin season, and things seem to have calmed down. So we shall see what happens. It's not too far away, so we could have maybe this is just the calm before the storm. Current crypto market cap at about $3.88 trillion, almost $4 trillion. And let's see. Okay, and then we've got the Bitcoin dominance at about 58.1%, Ethereum 13%, and the others are 29%. Remember, Ethereum leads before we have any altcoin season. It means that we must have leadership from Ethereum. So when Ethereum leads and the total Bitcoin dominance falls, particularly at 50 and below, then perhaps we begin to see I shouldn't say perhaps, but we begin to see the altcoin season start in earnest. Current crypto ETFs net flow this month at about just over $1 billion, and we can see the breakdown here: 518 million in Bitcoin and 800 million in Ethereum. So that's that. Okay, so let's have a look at the crypto unlocks, and in just over 11 hours, SUI is going to unlock, and we've got at about 44.25 million is the next unlock, which is quite small. SUI, I think the total percentage is about 1.24% of market cap. It's about 142 million, or approximately $143 million. Nothing to cry about there. Nothing to make anybody lose any sleep. It's too small to make any dent, I believe, in the price. We've got Bonk as well. Bonk at about 9.52 million. That's just 0.65% of the total market cap. Eigenlayer there, Zeta, DYDX, Ethena, it seems to be coming up almost every week that you look at, all these unlocks. Ethena is always there. And let's see if there's anything else to lose any sleep about. Not that much. Maybe those who are into Pump.fun. Pump is releasing 2.08 billion pumps. It's about 0.59% of market cap. Nothing to cry about there. It's 11.32 million. Arbitra, beg your pardon. And what else? ApeCoin. That's another one that always seems to be releasing, unlocking some coins or the other. But anyway, nothing to cry too much about here when it comes to that. Quick look at the price and market cap as well as its dominance. So we can see that BTC is up, Ethereum is up, BNB is up, Tron is up. We've got XRP down, ADA down, Solana down by 0.17%. XLM is down, SUI is also down. perhaps so you just pop back up, as we can see just now as we were saying it. Litecoin also down. Nothing too much here to make too much noise about. Let's have a quick look at the volume. And apart from a few here, BNB, Tron, Link, Ethereum, most have the volumes are down by a little bit. It's just over about 0.2, 0.4% for XRP. Nothing too much to cry about there. Something that I started to look at more closely because I find it interesting is the crypto market RSI Heatmap. And just to give you just to remind you, say how to use the relative strength RSI to determine market trends. So the RSI analysis is a commonly used technical analysis tool in cryptocurrency futures trading to help identify market trends. The RSI is a momentum oscillator that measures the speed and change of price movements. It is calculated based on the average gains and losses of a particular asset over a specified period of time, typically 14 days. And as we remember, 70 indicates overbought conditions, while 30, anything below 30, is oversold. And as we can see, most of the cryptocurrencies are here in the neutral zone and just above the 42.19 average RSI, as we can see. Quite a lot of them are weak, but not many are oversold or overbought. Very few are oversold or overbought. So this also helps and tell you that we are in some kind of neutral market situation, as we can see from the fear and greed index that you saw earlier. Finally, before we look at the charts, we're going to look at the Bitcoin Pi cycle top indicator. And you can see that if you look at it, if you look at past there, here, and here, that's when Bitcoin kind of topped and then began to fall. And now Bitcoin is at the 111 daily moving average, which is why you hear some people saying it's roughly just over 100,000 there, which is why you hear some commentators, some of the analysts out there saying that Bitcoin is going to fall to 100K. While it's possible, because in the realms of Bitcoin, I don't think, even if it does fall to 100K, I don't think it's going to fall any lower. The charts will help us determine that. But so let's look at the charts. So as always, let me start with BNB. Okay, let me start just a minute. Let's have a quick look through. Let's just close some of these distractions. Okay, so now BNB. For those of you that didn't see my last short video, as you well know, I like to look at the volume profile as well as what's going on with the volume and of course price action. And as you can see here, you can see these horizontal lines here. Now these lines, you tend to see others, most in green and some in orange. You see it on other charts. I think you can see, like as you can see here on the Bitcoin chart, you can see that it has both green and orange. So I'm going to explain that to you very quickly, but let's go back to BNB. The green lines here act as support, while the orange lines literally act as resistance. So we're going to be using those. Now, the main changes here, ladies and gentlemen, are the use of volume bubbles. And the size of the bubbles tells you how much money is being put on the line. As we can see, we've got green and we've got orange. Green, obviously, for those who are bullish, while the orange are for those bearish. So those are the buying and selling bubbles. And as we can see here in BNB here is at about 1,010. Nothing unusual there. You know how it has been and what we've been looking at. There are almost no areas of resistance up here. Maximum is 108.3 where it's got to. There's been quite a bit of selling here, but as we can see, it hasn't necessarily deterred the buying, which means that the buyers are kind of absorbing all those who are selling here. So this tells you that we should expect this to go back up. Now, whether it exceeds the, say, 1090 zone, that's another story. For it to come back to the point of control here, which you can see here at about $600, that's going to be one hell of a fall. I doubt that very much. I think that worst case scenario for BNB now would be at about 840. That's about this region here where there's some activity. Volume profile is kind of thin, and as you can see here, that's pretty obvious when you look at your volume profile. And of course, this little bit of chart down here, ladies and gentlemen, this is the CVD, or the cumulative volume delta, I beg your pardon, the cumulative delta, the volume here, and it's to the upside, as we can see. So that's just supporting, just sort of gives some kind of confirmation as to what is happening in this region. I think that if you ask me, let's see, I think this region here, anything about between about $840 and about $900, if it actually falls, it will be a very good buy for those who are interested in buying. I do not expect Binance, except something really dramatic happens, to fall anywhere below $840. Anyway, let's move on to Bitcoin. Okay, now we can see, remember what I said about these horizontal lines. You've got the green lines here, those are the areas of support, and the orange lines here have areas of resistance. This also helps us determine almost like buying and selling areas based on the Bitcoin price, as we can see. Now, several things. First, as you can see, volume profile fairly even, so nothing to cry too much about that. But the price action here literally tells you what Bitcoin is most likely going to do. Now, if you look at this area here, if we look here after the fall from 124, you can see that there are more. Look at these orange circles here. You can see that there's more selling than buying, and those that tried to get the price back up were absorbed because there was a follow through. Now, when you do not see that follow through, that is when you know that whichever side cannot show the follow through loses this battle. And in this case, the bulls lost the battle here. Now, we have three areas here of resistance. With the top one here about 118, there's another one here at about 117, and the last one's about just over 117. Now, as we can see, the price fell. And there's this kind of medium-sized bubble here, but the bulls won this battle again. It's going up, so we just have to wait and see. Worst case scenario, ladies and gentlemen. Worst case scenario. I can't see Bitcoin falling. I think mostly this area here, Bitcoin will hold us about 108, 107, 108. Now, one more thing. If you look here, you see some thinner horizontal lines, which are faint. These won't tell you that these don't have as much significance as the ones, these thick lined ones that you see here and here. But let's assume that things get out of hand. I can't see Bitcoin falling below $103. I doubt it. I don't see that happening. Would I buy Bitcoin at the moment? Ladies and gentlemen, no. I think it's too expensive, if you ask me. Now, if Bitcoin falls, it's not going to fall below that, 100,000. That's it. Worst case scenario. That's if we go by what we saw in the Pi cycle. So watch out for that. Again, no recommendations here as to Bitcoin, as to what Bitcoin is going to do, but I think that the low will be about 107, between 107 and 108. But, you never know with Bitcoin. I doubt that, as I said, I doubt it, but if it does fall, worst case scenario, ladies and gentlemen, 103. Extreme case, 100. At 100,000, I think 100,000 would be a good place to buy. And if you do buy, then yeah. But at the moment, too expensive. Stay away from it. Okay, let's have a look at Ethereum. Ethereum also has shown quite a bit of activity in recent times, and let's just get our volume profile. Let's get that on. It wasn't on earlier. There we go. Again, we can see areas of support, no areas of resistance, although we can see this area here at about roughly, yeah, there, 4,069 as an area to watch closely for. I think that worst case scenario with Ethereum is here at about 3,609, 3,610, ladies and gentlemen. I think that's about the worst case scenario for Ethereum. Volume profile fairly even, as you can see. A few just light, very, very light ice cream scoops there, as you can see. If Ethereum, is Ethereum a buy at the moment? I think the best thing to do with Ethereum here is to do some pair trading. That is, you convert from one, you compare its price. You do a comparison, let's say, between Ethereum and Bitcoin. And if Ethereum is eating Bitcoin's lunch, then yeah, that's an opportunity to, move from Bitcoin into Ethereum and see it go up, or vice versa. If the other way around, then you do the other thing. But you pair trade, I think. Is Ethereum a buy? Some of the big guys are buying. If Ethereum drops to about 3,006, between 3,006 and 4, that would be a reasonable buy, but not at the moment as we see it. The cumulative delta volume delta volume there is fairly okay, nothing too dramatic. In this area here, as we can see, the bears won, but not enough. I think they got absorbed, and we can see the price increasing, albeit gradually. Okay, so let's go to Solana. Now this is interesting. There was a diagram. I wish I could find that diagram. I wanted to show it to you, but I can't find it anymore. So I'm really angry with myself that I didn't keep it. Then this diagram showed how traditional finance is being rebuilt on Solana. A lot is going on with Solana. And I think that the institutions are trying to keep the price of this particular instrument low. Again, as we can see, if we look at this chart here, as we can all see, ladies and gentlemen, no areas of resistance, plenty of areas of support here, 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 here. Now, those areas of support, ladies and gentlemen, see them as areas of sort of buying areas. Now, have we lost out on an opportunity to buy at the moment? Yes. Remember in my other video, my last rough and ready video, I suggested that people buy Solana at under $200. As we are doing this video, it's about 206, 207, and the high today was about $213. I think you could wait. Worst case scenario, I think if anything happens, the price might fall back to about 190. I think anything under $200, as I said, will be a good buy. I mean, the cheaper you can get it, the better. I don't see it falling so dramatically below 175, this area here. Because if it breaks this area here, look at that area. We've got a slight area of sort of smallish ice cream scoop here, so which means that the price could easily fall. But I think worst case scenario, we're looking at about 175, but no worse than that. It's definitely a buy between 175 and about $200, but the cheaper you can get it, of course, the better. The top area here is still an area to sell at about 253. That might happen once more, but we shall just have to wait and see how the institutions. Now, for those of you who've been paying attention, you know that we've had some massive market maker manipulation. I think you should expect it even more with the advent of Solana ETFs coming to the fore, and I think they will do way better than the Ethereum ETFs, but only time will tell. Okay, so next we have SUI. Plenty of areas of resistance, almost no areas of support, so we take the areas of resistance as supply areas. and our support areas here as demand. And as we can see, it's just sort of lower highs and lower lows. So as we can see here, because if we take that, we can easily do this. As we can see, and we can do that there. So we can see that as almost forming like a channel there. Now what can happen? Do I think that Sui could fall? Well, yeah. I mean, Sui could find itself all the way back to about $2.80, which would be a buy. Anything under $3 would be a buy, in my opinion. We can see that our volume profile is top heavy here in these areas of resistance, which, as you can see, because of what you are seeing there, you can see why there's a lot of activity in this area, and you can see the denseness of our resistance areas here. So I won't be surprised if we fall, but I don't think it's going to go anything under $2.80. $2.80 would be a very good buy if you can get it there. Anything under $3, a good buy. Things are happening on the platform, definitely. A lot of development. I think that there was some kind of DEX that was started recently. I stand to be corrected. I can't remember the date. So much is happening. But I think that, as I said, anything under $3, a good buy. You can watch this, put on your alerts if it hits 280, definitely. Right. Next, we go into Moodeng, and we've, just to keep the faith as always, Moodeng again, as we can see, current price right at our point of control, and this area here, the very low area, the low volume node here at about 12 cents 15. I think I don't think there's any danger of Moodeng breaking 12 cents 15, and keep an eye on that. Although we've got some very low, sort of shallow support area here, which I think some kind of buying area there. But if it comes to about 12.15, yeah, it's a good buy. Speculators could buy at about 12 and sell here at about 18, 19, 20, this area here. A bit middle heavy on this one, as we can see, because the point of control is here, as well as a lot of activity there. Looks like the buyers, as you can see, if you look at these circles here, the big ones, some of the bulls have made some significant buys, but been absorbed by the sellers, and price have subsequently fallen. I think that we can keep an eye out. If we break this zone here to about 23, 24, then we can be rest assured that we're going to hit 27. Now, looking at what's happened in the past, could it fall if it gets to this area? Definitely. But I think it's going to take a bit of time. It keeps coming to this area here and going under. It tried to go up and it came back, and it's done this again. So you're just going to have to keep an eye out. I think, as I said, the speculators could buy at about 12 to sell at about 23, 24. I think that would be the best thing to do. If you have something higher than that, if you've bought at an earlier time when the price was much higher, patience is required. Remember, we've discussed this before, and that patience is still required now. So take note. And finally, among our meme coins, we've got WIF. Again, WIF, as you can see, has been trading sideways. Almost no areas of support. Everything more or less selling areas, particularly here where the heaviest volume is going on. And look at that. It's a bit skewed to the top here on our volume profile. And as we are looking at this, I think that worst case scenario, this is what I think. I think that this is the worst case scenario. You can see my mouse at about 59.60 cents. That would be a reasonable buy to sell at about 86, 87, and maybe a little bit higher if it breaks that area there for the speculators. If you're going to buy for speculation, wait till it falls to about 60 cents. Of course, you can set your alerts. So anything between 60 and 70 cents would be a reasonable buy. Nothing more than that. If you're buying at about 70 or over 70 cents, I would say please don't. Just be patient and speculate. Now, look, this is no financial advice, of course, but as you know, we like to do our rough and ready stuff here. Now, if you like this style on this particular way I've done it, let me know. If you don't, please let me know. I can always go back to the old way of showing you areas, major areas of demand and supply, if that's what you prefer. A lot of activities are going on in the crypto market, which requires our attention. The good thing about what's going on now is that with the fear and greed in neutral, it gives us time to take a deep breath and see what's going on. I think that only time will tell. I mean, I think that time will tell over in which direction we're going. Remember that our altcoin season index is still neutral. It went high for a while. I think it was about 81 for a little while, and now it's got back to 63. I think that the altcoin season has not necessarily started in earnest, which it could at any time, probably when we least expect it. And I think this is the time for people to make their purchases at reasonable prices. As speculators, sit back and wait for the market to change. And hey, who knows? Perhaps you can make quite a bit of profits from what happens in the market. Remember, these markets suddenly take off. The different instruments have their own time. They have their own cycles. So if you're in those instruments that you like and then it hits its cycle, even better. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, that's me. So keep your eyes and ears open, and you're trading sharp. Have a good one.